is raining so loudly outside. I don't know if you can hear that. Hello, what's up, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. Today we are once again talking about one of this channel's favorite subjects, and also one of my favorite subjects, which is obviously books, as you might be able to tell. And not only are we talking about books, we are also talking about everyone's favorite season, which is obviously autumn. There's just no better season to be a very pretentious, Latin-speaking, book-devouring, high-functioning alcoholic academic, and I live for that kind of vibe, as I know many of you do as well. So today I'm talking a little bit about some of the books I'm reading this autumn. I'm going to give you some recommendations. We have a little bit of a haul in there as well. So starting off with a little bit of context. If I look different, it's one, because I'm 21 now, and second of all, it's because I re-dyed my hair and it's looking very dark again. We're readjusting to it once again. And so in terms of this reading list, a lot of the books that I'm going to be discussing today are actually books that I'm reading for an optional course that I'm doing of my own volition. So my parents and my grandpa gave me a 6-week course on Gothic literature at the British Library for my birthday, and it is something I'm so incredibly excited about. If there's anything I've been yearning for this entire summer, it's to go back to academia and back to institutionalized learning. I had my first day back at uni yesterday, and I am quite excited to start off with. I always start off super excited. By the way, this is my final year. It's crazy how time flies, and it looks like this is going to be such a heavy writing year as well, because I'm doing my dissertation and I'm writing lots of reports in the meanwhile. So I'm finally going to live my dark academia, always writing, writer dream. And actually, something else that you might want to see is my new school bag that I got for this purpose. She is literally so beautiful. She is giving poet, writer, dark academia student. I'm so obsessed with her. So this is the vibe that we're going for this university year. And so getting into the books that I'm reading for my Gothic literature course, the first book I'm discussing is Horace Walpole's The Castle of Otranto. I'm probably going to be finishing this tonight, and I've just been enjoying this so much. There's something about this style and this genre of writing that I feel comes really natural to me as a reader. I find books like this, or Dorian Gray for example, to be really hard to describe, because for me they fall into their own kind of genre, where the plot is very simple almost, but the book is very thematically rich. Even saying the plot is simple isn't an effective way of describing it, because there's a lot that happens in this book, but most of it that is important is the way that the characters deal with these kind of plot points. I feel like they just kind of reel or flip through plot points very fast, and it makes for a very enjoyable reading experience because you never really get stuck or hung up on a certain event. Maybe I'm just describing the way a book works in general, but I feel like this or The Picture of Dorian Gray are like my ideal novels, both in length, in subject matter, in themes, in amount of plot that you have to go through. They are absolutely perfect, and I'm really enjoying this so far. And just in general, this book is really interesting as kind of a pillar of the Gothic horror or Gothic literary genre. This kind of sparked that whole movement. And I also just had a blast reading this introduction and reading about the author and what a crazy eccentric figure he was. He lived in this really large Gothic mansion that he called Strawberry Hill, and basically he curated every single object in there to spark a story or spark interest, so you can imagine what that looked like. Just a crazy antique-filled monster of a house, which I think is absolutely perfect. That's the goal that I'm striving towards as well. And I think it's also just really interesting that he kind of rejected the high art, low art dichotomy that existed even in his time. I mean, the reason we look down upon supernatural books is because they originate as something from the masses. They originated in Victorian times and early times as really cheap mass-published printed paperbacks that you get for like $1, and so they were kind of the public genre, and that's why they were looked down as lesser then. And I think it's really interesting that Horace Walpole, who was kind of a lord and an aristocrat and like came from education and money, also wrote, you know, fun supernatural novels and was like, deal with it. I think that's admirable, because people get way too obsessed about high art, low art, and in the end it's just about what you enjoy and what you like and what has meaning to you. I'm someone who also advocates for that a lot, so I think Horace and me are besties on that point. And so the second book that I'm reading for my course is Anne Radcliffe's The Romance of the Forest. This is once again one of the pillars of the Gothic genre, and it's one of the books that kind of heralded the surge in Gothic literature. I'd actually never heard of this book before I signed up for this course, but just from reading the back and seeing that it has a female protagonist and that it kind of ticks all the boxes of a Gothic novel, it sounds like something that would really work for me, and so I'm very excited to read this next. I had heard of Anne Radcliffe's later Gothic works that are very popular and well known, but I'd never heard of this, so I'm going to go check it out and I will report back. And now here's the book that I'm most excited and terrified for in this whole course, and that is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Now the reason I say that I'm both excited and terrified is because the expectations I've built up for this book are so huge that the idea of this not living up to what I want it to be is like a cosmic terror on its own. Before reading this, I kind of already identify with this book and feel like it should be the book for me. And obviously that's such a high expectation that I'm scared that this will not live up to it. But then again, on the other hand, I've seen so many of my most trusted book advisors really recommend this and enjoy this. So we will see how this turns out. Mary Shelley, I have such high hopes for you. I was literally at her mother's grave this week. So I'm just saying, maybe I'll read it there actually. Maybe I'll read it there. And now speaking of books that I read at St. Pancras Old Church, we have The Portable Edgar Allan Poe. So we don't have to read this whole thing for the course. We're just reading a bunch of loose short stories of his. And then we're also reading a bunch of other short stories, both modern works and older short stories. And so the part of it that I read in St. Pancras Old Church, which if you didn't know, is one of the oldest places of Christian worship in London and maybe even in Europe, going back to like the 4th century AD. It's really gorgeous there, and it has a bunch of sites including Mary Shelley's mother's grave, Mary Wollstonecraft Godwin, and then also the Hardy tree, which is known as the corpse tree. Maybe I'll make a video of its own on that cemetery someday. I kind of want to do a series of cemetery videos, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, the story that I read in the cemetery is obviously The Fall of the House of Usher, one of the most, if not the most famous works of Poe, beyond The Raven. I actually really enjoy The Fall of the House of Usher. I think it was my second or third time reading it, and I will be reading it again because it's just such a fun short story. And if that's any hallmark of what Poe's work is like, I haven't read a lot of his other work, then I feel like me and Poe are going to be literary besties, or at least Poe's writing style and I are going to be literary besties, and I'm looking forward to that. Anyways, beyond the assigned reading, I have 3 more books that I'm planning on reading. So the way this is kind of formatted and justified in my head is that obviously this is not a realistic reading goal for me. I don't think I can read this many books in just September, October, November. This is more of a priority book list and basically kind of stating that these are the books I want to get through before any of the other things on my TBR. And we're just going to see how that works out in general. So we have 3 books here that I would really like to get through ASAP because they match the mood and I'm very excited about reading them in general. First of all, I have Dante's Inferno. This is not necessarily a classic that excites and terrifies me. This leans more towards the terrifying side. But not to spoil anything, but this is kind of an important work for the novel that I'm writing kind of casually. And so I figured it's probably best if I do read this instead of just pulling quotes from it. Also, can we talk about how pretty this edition is? This was literally $5.99. And it also has the Evermore folklore font on the back. So the next book is kind of the token skinny book that I have in all of my book goal videos. It's the book that you end up throwing in your purse to go meet a friend. It's the book that you pull out when you're waiting in line for something. It's the book that inevitably gets stained with either red wine or coffee. And it's the book that gets just completely wrecked by being in your bag for weeks on end. And this is that book. This is George Bataille's Literature and Evil. So I'm just going to read you a bit from the back because I feel it explains the appeal perfectly. Bataille intellectualizes the erotic as he eroticizes the intellect. Reading him could be a disturbing kind of game. I don't know about you, but that sounds like a really good and fun time to me. I really like the genre of kind of writing on writing, and the fact that this mentions both eroticism and intellectualism and also evil sounds like a really good time to me, so I'm really, really excited for this. And now for the last book that I kind of have on my reading goal / priority list, which is The Ghost Stories of M.R. James. This book is just beyond stunning with the hardcover and the holographic text. This is one of the special British Library editions, and speaking of special British Library editions, they have a new series of books which I know you will love, okay? Because I love them, and so hopefully you will also be obsessed with them. So it is actually not for the covers that I'm obsessed with this new series of books from the British Library. I do love the illustrations on them, but obviously the neon colors are not really my thing. It's the subject matter that makes this series so incredibly fascinating and interesting to me. So I was in, and they had a 3 for 2 deal, so obviously I had to get 3 because otherwise it would be a waste of money. It would have been a waste of money. So after this, I'm definitely on a book buying ban, but these are the 3 that I've got. So I have Into the London Fog, Eerie Tales from the Weird City, which is like Gothic horror-esque tales of London, which sounds absolutely fantastic. Really excited about this one. Then speaking of the Gothic, we have I Am Stone, which are the Gothic weird tales of R. Murray Gilchrist. I'm just down for more Gothic spooky reads, and once again, this sounds so great for that. So I'm also really hyped for this. But my favorite one is this one, which is The Ghost Slayers, Thrilling Tales of Occult Detectives. Now it uses the word slayers. I'm a Buffy the Vampire Slayer stan, so I was immediately on board. But out of the 15 or so books that they had in the series, these 3 were the ones that gripped me the most. They had a bunch of other ones, including one that I believe was about supernatural or just tragic immortal love stories, which obviously I will need to pick up next. But yeah, those were the 3 that I got, and at this point I just need to start reading Gothic literature and Halloween autumn-y books throughout the whole year, which I'm perfectly content with. I feel like that's my vibe, and so maybe I will start doing that. And so finally, I have one book recommendation left. This is kind of my ultimate autumn recommendation. I really hope I have time to reread this book because it is one of my favorites ever. This is Ray Bradbury's The October Country. Smell of a Vintage book is so good, it beats everything. This is a book of short stories that just perfectly capture the essence of autumn. They're very high concept, thrilling short stories. They're kind of scary, kind of humorous, so they kind of sit on that double-edged sword of this is funny, but this is also deeply terrifying. And what Ray Bradbury does best is come up with a bonkers concept and then execute it perfectly in a short story. Some of these stories really stuck with me and changed my view on everything in life. And some of these paragraphs are so beautifully written, so autumnal, so cozy, like drinking a hot mug of tea. And I could never recommend anything else that is as good as this for the autumn season. If you've not read this, what are you doing? It's one of my favorite books. And with that, we are rounding up this video. It may not look like it, but I've been filming for 2 hours because the sun has been horribly bothersome today. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I don't know how long it turned out. I hope it was of reasonable length. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next video. Bye!